If Machiavelli were alive today, he wouldn't be on podcasts or writing motivational threads on Twitter. He wouldn't be running leadership courses or posting book pictures on Instagram. Machiavelli would be pulling strings in silence. He'd be backstage while everyone else fights for likes and validation. And you know what's scarier? Right now, as you watch this video, someone around you is already playing this game, and you haven't even noticed yet. Look at the absurd contrast between today's world and the Machiavellian mind. Everyone today seeks visibility, wants to be seen, wants recognition, wants social media status. Everyone wants to appear. Machiavelli? He'd seek invisible levers. He'd go after the decisions nobody sees, the narratives that shape behavior, the fears that control choices. He'd understand that real power doesn't make noise. Real power doesn't need a stage. Today you're going to learn 21 psychological laws inspired by Machiavelli, so you'll never be a pawn in someone else's game again, and if you want, become a strategist of your own life. These aren't motivational tips. This is mental surgery. It's understanding how the game really works beneath the surface. And before you think anything, let me give you a quick disclaimer. This isn't about screwing over innocent people. It's about stopping being naive, protecting yourself, and playing with awareness. Because if you don't play, you get played. Simple as that. And if you really want to understand how the strategic mind works, subscribe to the channel now and hit the bell, because in the next videos I'm going to break down Jung, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, and all the guys nobody really explains. But explain properly without coach talk. Now let's get straight to the content. First law, be underestimated on purpose. This goes against everything they taught you. Everyone tells you to show value, to prove you're good, to flaunt results. Machiavelli would do the opposite. He'd understand that it's safer to appear smaller than you are. While everyone's shouting results on social media, the strategist observes in silence. And you know why? Because when someone underestimates you, that person shows their cards. They show weaknesses, show inflated ego, show secrets they wouldn't protect if they knew who you really are. Think about it. When you don't need to prove you're the smartest, most experienced, or richest person in a room, you gain a superpower. People relax around you. They talk too much. They tell you things they'd never tell someone they see as a threat. You let the person think they're on top until you know the terrain completely. Then when you move, nobody saw it coming. That's the art of being underestimated on purpose. It's not weakness. It's pure strategy. The world is full of people trying to look bigger, stronger, more successful than they really are. And in that desperation to appear impressive, they exhaust themselves and reveal everything about their insecurities. Meanwhile, the truly dangerous player sits quietly in the corner, appearing harmless, collecting information like a hidden camera. This is the paradox of power. Those who scream about having it usually don't, and those who truly possess it rarely need to mention it at all. Second law, strategic invisibility in the age of exposure. Look at the irony of our time. We live in the era of maximum exposure. Everyone wants to be an influencer, wants to be recognized, wants millions of followers. And while that happens, the people who really run things stay backstage. Do you know who controls the big investment funds? Do you know the name of who really makes decisions in trillion-dollar conglomerates? Probably not. And that's exactly why they remain on top. Today's world rewards exposure, but real power lives backstage. Always has. Always will. So how do you use this? First, share little of your personal life. You don't need to post every achievement, every project, every move you make. Second, don't expose plans before they're solid. How many people do you know who constantly talk about the business they're going to start, the book they're going to write, the life they're going to build? And how many of those people actually do it? Few, because they spend energy announcing instead of executing. Be low profile while you build. Let others find out when it's already done. There's a reason why the most powerful people in the world aren't household names. They understand that visibility creates vulnerability, that fame creates targets on your back, that the spotlight blinds you while everyone else can see you perfectly. The person posting their entire life on social media has given away every strategic advantage they might have had. You know, their schedule, their location, their relationships, their vulnerabilities. They've handed you the complete blueprint of how to manipulate or harm them, all for some likes and comments from people who don't actually care. Is that power, or is that suicide? Third law, perception beats truth. This is brutal, but it's real. It's not the truth that runs the game. It's what people believe to be true. Machiavelli wouldn't work on moral discourse. He'd work on narrative. He'd understand that you can be right on all the facts, but if people's perception of you is different, you lost. Simple as that? Look how this shows up today. Social media, online reputation, storytelling. A mediocre person who knows how to tell stories beats a genius who doesn't know how to communicate. Every single day, is this fair? No, but it's real. So what's the healthy application of this? Take care of how you're perceived. You don't need to lie, don't need to pretend to be who you're not. But understand that image works for you or against you. And if you don't build your narrative, others will build it for you. And then you become hostage to other people's perception. Fourth law, ambiguity as a weapon. Think about it. Whoever is totally predictable is easy to control. If I know exactly how you'll react in every situation, I'll always be 3 steps ahead of you. Machiavelli would be cold in some moments, warm in others. Not from mental confusion, but from strategy. He'd understand the psychological effect of this. When you're not totally decipherable, people start thinking about you all the time, trying to understand. How to use this without being a psychopath? Simple. Don't leave everything spelled out. Don't always respond at the same speed. Don't always act the same way. Be consistent in values, that's non-negotiable. But be unpredictable in form. Sometimes you respond immediately, other times you take 2 days. Sometimes you're super accessible, other times you disappear. This creates a dynamic where you're never taken for granted. And whoever isn't taken for granted never gets discarded. Fifth law, control what they see, hide what matters. There's a brutal difference between output and input. Output is the result that appears. Input is how you do it. Most people mess up because they show both. They show the result and still explain the entire process. That's strategic suicide. Because when you reveal the process, you open space for 3 things: sabotage, envy, and copying. The envious person will try to hinder you. The interested person will copy you. And the ill-intentioned person will sabotage you. So apply this, show results, not strategic backstage. Share enough to inspire, but not enough to be neutralized. Let people admire the work, but don't hand over the architectural blueprint. Machiavelli would never reveal his true intentions until the move was complete. Neither should you. Sixth law, build a mask and let it crack once. This is subtle but powerful. Perfection is exhausting. When you're perfect all the time, people don't connect, they just admire from afar. But there's a psychological trick here. Be consistent 95% of the time. Calm, centered, secure, in control. And then, strategically, let a sincere vulnerability slip. Or a darker side. Just once. The effect of this is devastating. People start feeling there's something more to you. They become obsessed with discovering what's behind the mask. You become mystery. And mystery is magnetic. Everyone wants to decipher. Nobody can stop thinking. It's like showing 1 centimeter of the iceberg and hiding the other 99%. People's imagination does the rest of the work. Seventh law, speak less than necessary. Excess words reveal neediness. Reveal insecurity. Reveal fear of being misinterpreted. Whoever talks too much hands over information, hands over position, hands over power. Machiavelli would speak little and let uncomfortable silences do the work for him. Silence embarrasses. Silence pressures. Silence makes the other person fill the void and, in doing so, give themselves away. How to apply this? Respond objectively without over-justifying. Don't explain your own value, just demonstrate it. Understand that after your sentence, silence is your weapon. Most people can't handle 3 seconds of silence without starting to talk again. Use this. In meetings, in negotiations, in conflict, say your part, stop, and observe. You'll see the other person squirming to fill the space, and in that desperation, they'll hand over much more than they should. 8th law, be simultaneously ally and potential threat. People want simple labels. Friend or enemy, ally or rival. Machiavelli would live in between. He'd be cordial with rivals. He'd compliment those who underestimate him. He'd collaborate without fully surrendering. Why? Because when you don't fit into an easy label, nobody knows if they can attack you without getting burned. Practical application. Never show open hostility. Hostility puts you on the battlefield. Keep doors open even with people you don't trust. Always be useful enough not to be discarded, but never so useful that you get exploited. The balance is in being valuable but not essential, present but not dependent. This creates a psychological field where people don't know if you're totally on their side or if you might flip the game at any moment. And that doubt is your greatest asset. 9th law, make people feel safe before advancing. The strongest blow isn't the one that comes out of nowhere. It's the one that comes after trust. In the real world, most major changes happen when the other person relaxes their guard, when they feel they can trust, when they lower their defenses. That's when you move. Ethical application of this. Instead of confronting directly, you gain ground gradually. Generate genuine trust. Show value. Show consistency. And only then do you position yourself, negotiate, change the rules of the game. It's not about betraying. It's about timing. It's about understanding that you don't convince anyone of anything when the person is on the defensive. But when they're relaxed, confident, comfortable, that's when you have real influence. 10th law, create silent dependency. This is one of the most subtle and powerful. The idea is to become that person who solves a very specific problem. Not just any problem, a problem that only you solve that way. You help consistently, but without selling yourself as a savior, without fanfare, without expecting public recognition, until eventually the other person realizes without them everything gets complicated. But there's a danger here, and I need to make this clear. Don't become a slave to the other person. Don't allow yourself to be abused. This isn't about being exploited. It's about having options. It's about being valuable, but not available 24 hours. The dependency has to be useful for you too. If you just became a free resource, you messed up. The game is different. You want the person to feel it's better to have you around than far away. Big difference. 11th law, transform favors into invisible chains. When you do something big for someone, you create a psychological imbalance. The person feels debt, feels discomfort, feels the need to compensate. This is basic psychology, and Machiavelli would know this by heart, but how to use it without being a jerk. First, help without charging immediately. Second, remind them discreetly later. You don't need to be aggressive. You just need to bring it up. Remember when I held you up in that situation? Most people will adjust themselves. They'll want to balance the scales. Not because you demanded it, but because the human mind can't stand living in emotional debt. So use this wisely. Help those who are worth it. Save those moments. And when you need to, use the memory as bargaining currency. Without violence. Just reminding them that you have history. And history generates loyalty. 12th law, loyalty through complicity, not affection. This one hurts, but it's raw truth. People are much more loyal to what compromises them than to what they love. Think about it. A friend who only shares good moments with you can leave you tomorrow. But someone who broke a rule in your favor? Someone who told something they shouldn't have? Someone who exposed themselves with you? That person has an interest in keeping you around because you share secrets. You're compromised. Now, I need to give a heavy warning here. This is a heavy weapon. Playing with this can destroy lives. So use this more to perceive when someone tries to do this to you than to do it to others. Notice when someone tries to involve you in something questionable. Notice when someone wants you to break rules together? Careful, because then you become hostage. This chain works both ways. The Machiavellian mind understands that shared guilt is stronger than shared joy. People forgive those who make them happy, but they never forget those who could expose them. This is why corrupt organizations are so cohesive. Why criminal enterprises have such loyalty, why conspiracy requires such tight bonds. It's not love that holds them together. It's mutual vulnerability. It's the knowledge that if one falls, all fall. This creates a bond stronger than blood, more reliable than friendship, more enduring than affection. Use this knowledge to protect yourself, to recognize when someone is trying to compromise you, to understand why certain groups are impenetrable from outside. 13th law, break alliances from within. Large groups don't fall from frontal attack. They fall from internal distrust. Machiavelli knew this. He'd never attack a cohesive group head-on. He'd plant microscopic doubts. How? Small observations. Innocent questions. Notice how he acts differently with you than with others. Did you catch what he said? Is he really on your side? The mechanism isn't inventing lies. It's amplifying what's already cracked. Every group has internal tensions. Every group has egos in conflict. You just need to give a little push. But again, and I'll repeat this until I'm tired, use this to perceive when they're trying to turn people against you. When someone starts asking questions about another person in your presence, careful. They might be testing to see if you take the bait. Don't bite. 14th law, mirror their insecurities. When you touch someone's insecurity subtly, not aggressively, just validating, you become the person who really sees that person. And this creates a deep connection, because everyone wants to be seen. Everyone wants to feel someone understands. So, simple phrases like, I know this must be heavy for you. I imagine how much this bothers you. I know you don't show it, but this affects you. Result? The person feels you read their soul and starts trusting your opinion too much. They start seeking validation from you. They start giving you emotional weight you didn't have before. Now, the risk here is obvious. Using this to manipulate is way too dark. So, I suggest you use this to understand when someone does this to you. When someone seems to understand you too much, too fast, careful. It might be strategy, not empathy. 15th law, never appear as the executor. Machiavelli would manipulate the scenario so others would do the dirty work. If someone needed to be fired, removed, confronted, he'd make it seem like it was a collective decision, or that it was inevitable due to circumstances, but never that he was the one who executed. Why? Because whoever executes carries the hatred. Whoever executes becomes a target. Whoever executes loses social capital. So the main idea here is, you influence the logic, but don't sign the act. Soft application of this, instead of attacking someone directly, you let the facts speak. You let the person's own decisions hurt them. You just arrange the board. Checkmate comes by itself, and when it comes, nobody will point the finger at you. Because you were just observing. Technically, 16th law, use silence as an interrogation room. People can't stand silence after a tense question. They can't stand the void. So if you don't react, if you don't fill the space, they keep talking, explaining, justifying themselves, giving themselves away. It's automatic. It's psychological. It's inevitable. Practical application. In arguments, in negotiations, in moments of conflict, speak little and listen twice as much. Resist the urge to justify. Resist the urge to correct every point. Let the other person fill the void. In 5 minutes of strategic silence, you'll discover more about the person than in 5 hours of normal conversation. Because in discomfort, masks fall. 17th law, be predictable in character, unpredictable in action. There's a crucial difference here. Values need to be fixed. You're fair, you don't betray, you don't lie. That doesn't change. People need to know this about you. But behaviors? Those can be flexible. The way you react can change. Timing can change. Intensity can change. This creates an interesting effect. People respect you because they know you have principles, but they have a slight fear of messing up with you because they don't know exactly how the consequence will come. You're not violent, but you're also not predictable. You don't explode, but you also don't swallow everything. You act, but never at the expected moment. This keeps people alert around you without paranoia, but with respect. 18th law. Make your presence weigh even when you're not there. The idea here is to become a mental reference. People start evaluating decisions thinking, what would he think of this? Would this pass his standard? How to build this? By being extremely consistent in standards, quality, discipline, results, leaving a strong mark in every environment you pass through. When you do this, something incredible happens. Even from far away, your name still dictates behavior. People act a certain way because they know that if you find out, there will be consequences. Or because they want your approval, even if you're not there. You become a psychological presence. And psychological presence is multiplied power. This is the ultimate form of influence, when your standards become internalized in other people's minds. When they start regulating their own behavior based on what they think you would approve of. You're no longer just a person, you're a principle. You're no longer just present, you're omnipresent. This is what great leaders, great teachers, and great manipulators all understand. Physical presence is temporary and limited. Psychological presence is permanent and infinite. You can only be in one place at a time, but your influence can be in 1,000 minds simultaneously. 19th law, never threaten, let fear work alone. Direct threat creates defense. The person prepares. The person raises shields, but silent suggestion? That creates paranoia. Instead of saying, if you do this, it's over, you just show with actions that you don't hesitate to walk away, to change, to cut. Without warning, without drama, just action. The other person starts fearing more what you might do than what you say. And silent fear is much more efficient than explicit threat. Why? Because threat puts you in the position of having to follow through, but silent fear? That works 24 hours a day in the person's mind, without you doing anything. You just need to have a history of being relentless when necessary. The rest the person's mind does by itself. 20th law, revenge is timing, not explosion. Machiavelli would never react in the heat of emotion. He'd wait for the most efficient moment. The idea is to let the person forget, feel safe, relax, and only then do you cut access, close doors, withdraw support. Without anger, without resentment, just strategic movement. An important reinforcement here. In the real world, often the best revenge is simply cutting the flow. Attention, help, partnership, referral. You don't need to destroy anyone. You just need to stop building with that person and let gravity do the rest. The person who wronged you in the heat of the moment expects immediate retaliation. They're braced for it, ready to defend, prepared to counterattack. But when nothing happens, they relax. They think they got away with it. They lower their guard completely. And that's when the true Machiavellian strikes, not with emotion, but with calculated precision. Months later, years later, when the person has completely forgotten, when they're vulnerable, when they need you most, that's when you're simply not there. Not because you're bitter, not because you're petty, but because you remember what they are, even if they've forgotten what they did. 21st law, stop being a person, become a system. This is the strongest of all. Machiavelli didn't want just momentary power. He wanted structure. He wanted something that would continue without him. Today, this means creating processes, businesses, networks, ways of thinking that remain. Influencing mentality, not just specific decisions. When you become a system, removing you from the game starts to have an enormous cost. Because you're no longer just you. You're a logic. You're a pattern. You're a way of thinking that has already infected other minds. Your way of seeing the world remains in those who learned from you. And then you become immortal. Not biologically, but systemically. And in the power game, that's the closest thing to eternity. Think about the great historical figures who still influence us today. They're dead, but their systems live on. Their ideas, their structures, their ways of thinking have been replicated in millions of minds. They're no longer individuals, they're movements. They're no longer mortal, they're eternal. This is the ultimate Machiavellian achievement. To build something so robust, so self-sustaining, so deeply embedded in the fabric of culture that removing you personally changes nothing. The system continues without you because it's no longer dependent on you. It has its own life, its own momentum, its own inevitability. Now, before finishing, I need to reinforce the central concept of all this. These 21 laws aren't an invitation to become a cheap manipulator. It's not for you to go around destroying people. This is to get out of naivety. It's for you to create boundaries. It's for you to read power games. It's so you don't get used. Because look, the game is already happening. With you or without you. The only question is, are you going to play or are you going to be a piece? Now I want you to do something. Comment down below which of these 21 laws hurt the most. Which one opened your eyes to something that already happened to you? Which one do you realize they already used against you without you even noticing? I want to know. Because the level of your awareness about this shows the level of your game. And if you made it this far, you're not the same anymore. You already know too much. I also suggest you rewatch this video taking notes. Write down each law. Write down examples from your life where this happened. Write down who uses this against you. Write down where you can apply it to defend yourself. This video isn't entertainment. It's a psychological survival manual. Treat it as such. And subscribe to the channel now because I'm going to continue breaking down Machiavelli, Jung, Nietzsche, Schopenhauer, and all the philosophers and psychologists that really matter for men who want to stop being played. Without motivational talk, without coach phrases, just raw, direct, real content. Hit the bell too because the next videos will go deep into manipulation, power, mass psychology, and mental structures that nobody teaches you. And if you really want to become a strategist of your own life, you can't miss any video. Each one is a piece of the puzzle. Now go, rewatch this video, write everything down, and stop being a pawn. The game is real. The board is set. And now you have the rules. Use them wisely. Use them consciously. And especially use them to protect yourself. Because Machiavelli was right, it's better to be feared than loved if you can't be both. But I add one thing, it's better to be conscious than naive always. Until the next video.